Don't be shy. You're just a high school dropout who's going to teach me German, right? Derek mockingly tossed the documents my way. Got it. Despite feeling resentful, I obediently started to go through the documents. But immediately, I was taken aback by the unbelievable content I read. We absolutely cannot agree to this contract. It could jeopardize our company's existence. Huh? I hastily translated and skimmed the contract, summarizing its details. Derek, my would-be boss, and other executives present were visibly shocked. My name is John. I started working at this company nearly 20 years ago, beginning as a part-time apprentice. After spending a decade at an overseas branch, I was recently called back to the head office. Feeling nostalgic, I entered the bustling New York headquarters. My father, known for his whimsical and carefree nature, disappeared as soon as he learned of my mother's pregnancy. Raised in a single-parent home, I witnessed my mother's tremendous struggles. She worked at cafe and supermarket during the day and tirelessly did piecework late into the night. When I was in my third year of middle school, my mom encouraged me to go to high school. But I knew my mom was working day and night, so I wanted to help her financially rather than going to high school. Understanding her health was failing due to overwork, I felt no hesitation in starting work right after middle school. I took up a part-time job at a factory producing computer components. It offered enough work to keep me busy, and they also provided meals and a transportation allowance. For me, it was the perfect job. Perhaps because a kid suddenly joined them, everyone at the factory took great care of me. They taught me skills to improve quality, efficient work methods, and even the best way to wash work clothes. Some even gave me vegetables to take home to my mother. I was well liked by everyone, and thanks to their detailed guidance, I enjoyed my work. President Thompson must have noticed my rapid development and offered me a full-time position, a stroke of great fortune. When I received a bonus for my well-received parts, I joyfully bought a gift for my mother. However, 4 years later, my mother, who had always been frail, passed away, leaving me alone. During my period of grief and low spirits, President Thompson approached me with an opportunity. How about working overseas? We'll support you with your German. Seeing me struggle in my hometown, he offered me this chance. The company had established an overseas branch that wasn't performing well. Feeling lost without my mother, I accepted the offer to work abroad. Adapting to work in a foreign country was genuinely challenging. Not only the language barrier, but also the cultural differences created many confusions. Initially, there were issues like not gathering on time and subpar work quality. I often clashed with the local workers. However, by exchanging opinions, we gradually began to understand each other. When I shared my background, some even wept for the mother they never met. I was invited to family feasts and even received support from local influencers. In this way, I gradually built up a track record at the branch office. After a decade, I became proficient in German and took on external negotiations. Then, I received orders to return home. For 10 years, I worked tirelessly, trying to forget about my mother. Standing in front of the headquarters after a decade, I was astonished. While I was working hard overseas, the headquarters had constructed a new building, quite an impressive structure. It was a glass-clad skyscraper, with security guards stationed around the clock. Welcome back, you've done well overseas. We've arranged a temporary position for you, so please do your best there. President Thompson greeted me with a warm smile. My position at the company was still up in the air. It seemed they were unsure about where to best utilize me. After the greetings, President Thompson quickly escorted me to the sales department. At first glance, the sales team appeared youthful and full of energy. I'm John, and I'll be working with you from today. "Nice to meet you," I introduced myself. Everyone responded to my greeting with smiles. I thought I'd be able to adjust smoothly at the headquarters. However, my optimistic outlook was soon shattered by a man. The next day, I greeted my new boss, the department manager named Derek. "Good morning." There was no reply to my greeting. Even though he had been friendly during my introduction the day before, he looked displeased. "Good morning," I said again, thinking he might not have heard me. "Quiet, I heard you." I was suddenly confronted with harsh, offensive language. As I stood there in shock, a mocking voice followed, further belittling me. "You're a high school dropout, and you're older than me. Yes. You went overseas or something, but I guess it was just because you're too dumb and got demoted, right?" I had been looked down upon for being a dropout before, but I didn't expect it here. As I stood speechless, Derek continued. "Guarding a useless dropout like you is just my bad luck," he said condescendingly, looking me over and then returning to his desk. During lunch, I learned from my colleagues that Derek was considered an elite due to his high educational background. He would flatter those he deemed superior and look down on those he saw as beneath him. He was not well liked because he flaunted his status. But he has a good facade, so complaining about him will only lead to resentment. It seems like the people at work have somewhat resigned themselves to the situation. Apparently, Derek started out humble but became arrogant once he had subordinates. I tried to begin my actual work to assess Derek, but he didn't explain anything to me. "You can handle this work as a high school dropout. Just do some menial tasks." Saying so, they wouldn't even let me properly handle the documents. "No, I was assigned here by President Thompson, so please let me see the contracts or something," I insisted. "Like I said, there's no job for a useless high school dropout here." "Oh wait," he said smugly. Derek called a nearby part-time cleaning staff member and told me, from now on, clean with her. What? Both the part-time worker and I were shocked. "Document work is too good for an incompetent dropout," he scoffed. Stunned, I exchanged glances with the part-time staff. Derek placed a broom and cloth in front of me, smirking. "Hurry up, or does a dropout not even know how to clean?" Frustration welled up inside me, but I didn't want to cause trouble so soon after returning. Additionally, my colleagues around me kept glancing over. They were probably afraid of becoming the next target of Derek's wrath. Holding back my emotions, I picked up the broom and rag and began cleaning methodically. "Okay, it seems we are done today," the part-time staff member said, offering me coffee in the break room. "Thank you, that Derek. He's really a terrible person," I said. She shared that she too was looked down upon just for being in the cleaning staff. Her name was Emily Thompson. Being close in age and sharing the common plight of being burdened with Derek's unreasonable demands, we bonded and became close. She taught me some cleaning tips, and in return, I shared with her some sewing tricks I had learned from helping my mother with her home-based work. Meanwhile, Derek's arrogant behavior only worsened. He relegated me to menial tasks like making tea and photocopying, typical of a new employee's chores. Even when I asked to see documents, he'd refuse to show them, and only after repeated requests, he'd reluctantly toss them my way. My colleagues would give me sympathetic looks but seemed afraid of becoming the target of his anger. I understood their feelings, so I didn't hold any grudges against them. They would later apologize and sneakily show me the documents, making it easier for me to work without drawing Derek's attention. One day, I spotted a troubling company on the list of potential contract candidates. It was an overseas company known for non-payment and failing to deliver goods. I remembered listing it as a risky business while I was at the branch office. If we can secure a contract with any of these, it could significantly grow our company, and my achievement will be huge, Derek excitedly said. Indeed, if we could implement the management AI system developed by this company, we wouldn't need to keep paying a fortune to the outsourced management firm. Driven by a desire for success, Derek was visibly excited. But I had a bad feeling about that company. Despite my issues with Derek, I couldn't let the company engage in something dangerous. I think it's better to research that company a bit more. There are some questionable businesses overseas, and it's better to be cautious. I suggested, handing him a manual with the cautionary criteria we used at the branch. However, he knocked the document from my hand, scattering it across the floor. "What are you doing?" I exclaimed. "Ha, as if a document written by a high school dropout could be worth anything. Don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong," he scoffed. It was clear talking to him was futile. I wondered if people like Derek were common in this company. I was in the cafeteria, sighing heavily. Then Emily came over. By that time, we had become confidants and complaining. "Did Derek give you a hard time again?" "It's not your fault," she said. "Yeah, he didn't even glance at the manual I made, just knocked it over," I replied. "That's terrible. What was the manual about?" she asked. The manual contained confidential company information. So I couldn't just tell Emily, an external contractor. When I explained this, I expected her to be disappointed, but instead, she smiled warmly. "You're really honest, John. With your diligence, you'll definitely see brighter days," she reassured me. Her smile lifted my spirits. I was encouraged by Emily's gesture of giving me homemade cookies as a reward for my hard work. I mustered the courage to go and consult with Derek. I was curious about his negotiation and contract styles and asked to accompany him, even if only as an errand boy. You want to shine my shoes," he mocked. "Yes, I'll do it," I agreed. "Fine, but remember, someone like you shouldn't even be part of this," he said disdainfully. It was humiliating, but I got the chance to participate in the negotiation. The other party was scheduled to come to our office for a meeting at 2 p.m., as Derek had mentioned. With this faint hope, I opened the door to the meeting room in the afternoon. But when I arrived, the place was completely deserted. Rushing to the office, I learned that the meeting had already ended in the morning. Returning to my desk, I saw Derek smirking. "Hey, I told you the meeting was at 11 a.m., didn't I? What's this mess now?" he accused. "What do you mean? Wasn't it supposed to be at 2 p.m.? I asked, confused. "I clearly said 11 a.m. It's really troublesome how a high school dropout can't even keep track of time," he taunted. Suddenly, I realized I had been set up by Derek. "Derek, what kind of person are you? Do you have a problem with me? It's not your place to speak up, you low achiever." This is how I lost my chance to be a part of the contract meetings. Feeling down, I secretly opened the cookies Emily had given me. Then something unbelievable happened. "Hey, don't you dare think you can take a break, you incompetent." Derek snatched the cookies from me and crushed them under his shoe, turning them into dust. "How could you do that? Those were Emily's cookies. Huh, that cleaning lady, huh, perfect match for a bottom dweller like you." Was I destined to be treated this way just because I didn't finish high school? I could tolerate it for myself, but I couldn't stand Emily being insulted too. Enough is enough. I've got my own thoughts on this matter. Derek seemed taken aback for a moment at my assertive tone, but quickly turned furious. "What? You're defying me. You keep calling me incompetent, but what do you really know about me? You never even tried to see my abilities. Just looking down on me must be so easy for you." This seemed to hit a nerve, as Derek slammed a thick document in front of me. "Then you can read this, right? Teach me some German, Mr. Middle School Dropout." "Understood." I picked up the document and started reading. It appeared to be a contract used in today's transaction. This will be a huge advancement for me if it gets finalized. Ignoring the boasting Derek in the background, I continued reading the contract and discovered something alarming. This could ruin the company. Stunned, I looked up to find Derek snatching the contract from me. Of course, a middle school dropout can understand German, right? Start from the alphabet again. His usual demeaning tone didn't matter to me now. What are you talking about? If we agree to this contract, our company is in danger. I yelled at Derek, forgetting all formalities. And I rushed to the president's office. President Thompson was shocked by my sudden entrance but turned pale as he read the contract and listened to my explanation. He immediately summoned Derek. President Thompson, I apologize. This idiot just barged in causing trouble. What on earth is this all about? President Thompson gathered other executives, and in the midst of them, I raised some concerning points. Is this the contract from today's deal? Yes. Derek's voice was drowned out by President Thompson's shout. Are you trying to bankrupt this company? Derek, look here. There's no delivery date specified. The contract shockingly had no delivery date mentioned and stipulated that we would pay before starting the work. I translated the contract briefly while reading. The executives, including President Thompson, turned ghostly pale. We have a payment deadline mentioned, but there's no deadline for when the other party will deliver. That's the problem. Well, they said they were short on funds to build the system, so once we transfer the money, they'll deliver it soon enough. Derek tried to deny my claims, but he was flustered. He probably realized something was off but didn't want to agree with me. Derek, growing desperate, tried to argue, but I calmly continued. No, there's a real possibility that they could just take our money and disappear. What are you saying? I've seen the company's system with my own eyes. What if that was just a sample to gain our trust? However, Derek turned red-faced with anger and snapped at me, but every time he did, his words got tangled up. The contract was lacking in credibility, almost like a mere verbal agreement. If any trouble arose, it would just lead to a futile argument of he said, she said. But more troubling was a particular clause written in it. The cost of updates for any deficiencies will be borne by us as needed, it read. In small, hard-to-read German print. There was no mention of an upper limit to the amount, and agreeing to such terms could potentially lead to enormous financial demands. This shows you haven't read the contract properly. A little attention would have made these issues immediately apparent. No, there's no way such a major company would deceive us. The contractor, a major player, have been receiving bad press lately, especially in the overseas locations where I have been posted. Unlike in America, where trust is paramount, dealing with overseas companies often means our laws don't apply. As I conveyed these concerns, Derek's face turned red, then pale, in quick succession. I just accepted the contract they offered. There was no problem when we talked. But the actual document says otherwise, doesn't it? Once a contract is stamped, it's difficult to overturn. Even taking legal action against an overseas company might not get us anywhere. That's why, in our branches, we don't do lump sum payments up front but rather employ milestone-based or split payment methods as a precaution. Contracts are crucial. The other party is counting on us falling into their trap. Derek, obviously upset at being constantly challenged by me, was biting his lip and trembling, but I didn't have time for him. President Thompson, let's talk with the company. Since we haven't officially contracted yet, there should be a way to handle this. Yes, please do. I'm sorry to have you clean up this mess. I, along with Derek and other executives, contacted the counterpart. Thinking the contract was a done deal, they arrived excitedly. However, upon seeing not only Derek but other staff lined up, they looked confused. The negotiations with the executives were tough, as the other party kept dodging responsibility. In the midst of the heated German discussions, Derek merely shrank back. Anyway, we can't agree to these terms. At the very least, we need to change the payment terms. But Derek agreed to it. He didn't read the contract. That's our fault, but these terms are unacceptable. The other party was probably holding out, thinking they were about to receive a massive sum. After some grumbling, they finally agreed to annul the contract. We've heard various rumors about your company. If it were to cost us millions, we'd have to reconsider. My firm stance seemed to work. In the end, they left the company with words of disdain for the Americans. I was relieved. It was a situation that could have been irreversible. Dealing with overseas companies is tricky because they can escape anywhere. Back at the office, President Thompson thanked me and reprimanded Derek. It's the other party's fault for being malicious. Any other employee would have done the same. Why am I the only one being blamed? Derek rambled excuses, but President Thompson, who disliked such talk, scolded him further. Regardless of the reason, the responsibility lay with Derek. He had endangered the company by not checking the contract. Well, if you can't even read a contract properly, I can't trust you with important tasks. President Thompson effectively sidelined Derek, who was fuming. Why, I've contributed to this company. It's his fault for interfering. Both I and President Thompson were at a loss for words at his absurd reasoning. Do you even understand why I hired John in the first place? I heard he worked overseas, but he's a high school dropout, right? I gave work to such a person, so I don't deserve to be disrupted by him. Then, President Thompson began to scold Derek. Derek, enough already. John is a talented individual who turned our overseas branch around in 10 years. Are you judging him based on his educational background? That's a lie, just to get him into the company. How could a high school dropout be competent? Despite being reprimanded so severely, Derek still couldn't admit his faults. I opened my mouth, feeling exasperated. I may be a high school dropout, but I have extensive experience dealing with foreign companies due to my 10 years at the overseas branch. I was asked to accompany you this time, as we're considering deals with foreign companies at the headquarters too. Derek, looking at me as if seeing something unbelievable, trembled and stuttered in denial. A company that employs a dropout like this is the problem. Dropouts should just grovel at the bottom. Derek himself seemed to have lost track of what he was saying. His styled hair disheveled as he ranted incoherently. Clearly, he was extremely bothered by my achievements in the company. Even if he had understood from the beginning, the outcome would likely have been the same. I approached Derek calmly and spoke evenly. Derek, do you realize how much trouble you've caused the company with this incident? At my words, Derek flinched, but then he snapped back, his brows furrowed in anger. Shut up. You're nothing but an incompetent fool. Enough. You're the one who almost caused damage to this company. As I raised my voice, Derek bit his lip. President Thompson strode over and addressed Derek directly. True, you have a high education, but that doesn't give you the right to act superior here. Be aware of your unacceptable behavior as a professional. But it's the same for him. He's not behaving according to professional manners either, Derek retorted, trying to shift the blame to me for being late to the meeting. I can't believe I'm considered inferior to someone who can't even keep time. Then show us the email correspondence with the other party. The real issue was that Derek had lied to me about the meeting time, leading to my absence. The time I had been told was 1400 hours, but the actual time was 11 o'clock. If we could see the email dialogues with the other party, it would be immediately clear. Reluctantly, Derek showed the emails after President Thompson's stern command, and sure enough. Indeed, the emails exchanged between Derek and the client showed the meeting time was set for 11 o'clock. This confirmed that Derek had lied to me. It's not true. I did tell John 11 o'clock, but he didn't show up. Derek's desperate excuses fell on deaf ears. I was speechless at his absurdity. It's not just that. Derek hasn't been giving John any work, rather making him do cleaning and tea serving whenever possible. Then, as if to add insult to injury, another person entered the scene. It was Emily, the cleaning lady. Emily, what are you doing here? What? A mere cleaner trying to meddle. Though she was a cleaner, Emily was dressed in a crisp suit, unlike her usual work attire. Thank you for your hard work, Emily. It's fine, Dad. To everyone's surprise, Emily was President Thompson's daughter. It never occurred to anyone that they were related, given the commonality of their last name. President Thompson had a policy of not showing favoritism to family. So Emily had to start as a cleaner, observing the company's inner workings. This fact was known to only a few executives, and her identity as the president's daughter was kept under wraps. Emily, having witnessed the animosity between me and Derek, began to recount everything in detail. It's not fair. That's just sneaky. Unfair. If you had behaved properly, there would have been no problem, and you even crushed my cookies. Derek, who had demeaned Emily as just a lowly cleaner, turned deathly pale. I was almost impressed at how ashen a human face could turn. John, despite facing tough challenges, never attempted to leak confidential information of the company. He's a trustworthy person, someone said. You don't seem to have the right mindset for someone in a leadership position. You're relieved of your duties as a department head, declared President Thompson. No one dared to counter such a decisive statement from President Thompson. Derek himself collapsed to his knees, utterly dejected. A week later, I was appointed as the head of the sales department, responsible for negotiations with foreign companies. My former colleagues, once oppressed by Derek, were now working more energetically. Although Derek wasn't fired, he ended up working under me. His arrogance was gone, but his dissatisfaction was palpable. He mumbled complaints under his breath and lagged behind in his work. What are you doing, Derek? Nothing. If you have time to surf the web, you should be working on improving your German proficiency, I suggested. I had introduced a German learning program and business communication skills training in the company. Realizing the lack of practical German skills in our headquarters, I saw this as necessary. Indeed, I started attending negotiations with overseas companies, but whenever we dealt with savvy foreign businessmen, we tended to be underestimated. Perhaps this was partly because Americans tend to be less assertive. I shared negotiation tips with my team, and their skills improved rapidly, leading to successful contracts. My manual, once discarded by Derek, was now being used by new employees. After Emily's recommendation, President Thompson had read and approved it. Our business performance improved, especially with the overseas branches. The foreign company that had almost caused a crisis for us was now isolated, having been exposed by our proactive information sharing with other businesses. They were reportedly on the verge of bankruptcy. I found great satisfaction in this job where hard work was properly recognized. However, Derek alone refused to study and remained sullen. No matter what I advised, he wouldn't listen. Why do I have to be told such things? He kept exuding a negative aura, incessantly voicing his dissatisfaction. This attitude made it impossible to entrust him with any significant tasks. Assigning menial tasks to Derek out of spite was not mature, yet there was no element in him to uplift either. Such days eventually came to an end. He disliked taking orders from me. Employees who used to work under him were rapidly climbing the career ladder. It seemed that witnessing this reality was too much for his pride to endure. I quit. I won't stay in a company where a high school dropout is celebrated, he shouted, slamming his resignation letter in front of me. I didn't try to stop him. Instead, I accepted his resignation. Later, I heard that Derek tried to join our rival companies but was unsuccessful. His high educational qualifications weren't enough to compensate for his lack of German skills and arrogant attitude during interviews. The industry buzzed with rumors about him, reflecting his notoriety. Had he been humble and eager to learn, his high education would have been a great asset. However, his re-employment prospects seemed bleak. Meanwhile, Emily and I were dating, with President Thompson's approval. She officially joined the company and was doing well in the accounting department. Despite being the president's daughter, she worked diligently without any arrogance. "You supported me, and that's why I could work hard. Thank you," I said to her. "No, you were just being honest and sincere. It's your abilities that got you recognized," she replied. What started as a dinner to thank her for her support gradually grew into a relationship. We confessed our feelings to each other, and now we're discussing when to talk to President Thompson about marriage. Both of us enjoy household chores, so living together will likely go smoothly. After my mother's passing, I had some lonely days. Now, I am hopeful about starting a new family with Emily. My husband is a division manager at a major corporation. Quite a different world from yours, a middle school dropout, right? Linda, who was my classmate in middle school, said this to me after we had exchanged various words. Upon hearing this, I replied, "Well, he's getting fired tomorrow, you know." "What?" Linda uttered in surprise, turning her gaze towards her husband Mike, who was present. This created a scenario where a woman who had spoken rudely to me without knowing my true identity was now aware of her husband's impending dismissal. For Mike, who was unaware of the situation, this exchange must have been quite a shock. However, it was necessary to draw out the true feelings of the troublemaker who had been causing many people distress. As a result of our act, Mike, who misunderstood that he was being fired, began to dig his own grave with his subsequent actions. My name is Jack. I'm a 32-year-old man with a dream of living surrounded by a large family. I rent an apartment near downtown and live alone while working. I'm the CEO of a major corporation with about 7,200 employees. However, our company's employee count is not particularly high compared to other famous companies of the same scale. We have always focused on quality over quantity, which is why we have fewer employees compared to other major corporations. We are often underestimated by others, but our commitment to meticulous work and a customer-first philosophy has led to the company's rapid growth in recent years. Consequently, we plan to increase our workforce soon. Both my secretary Lisa and I are on the verge of being overwhelmed by the workload, so it seems unavoidable. The business is to the point where there's barely any time to rest. However, when I occasionally talk about my past, people are surprised. As a child, I was not an outstanding student. I was average in both academics and sports, and I wasn't a friendly type with many friends. So, in middle school, I thought I would just get a job at some company and live a normal corporate life. But, as a hobby, I started streaming videos, introducing interesting games, and doing playthroughs, which received a lot of responses from people. I decided to pursue that path. I developed simple gaming and learning apps and tried selling them, which became a big hit. Before I knew it, the company had grown significantly. So, when I meet classmates who knew me when I had to drop out of school in middle school, everyone is surprised. Of course, I am too. There was a time when both my parents were injured, and we temporarily fell into poverty. I never thought I would become a CEO back then. As the chill of winter began to ease, I drove my car, observing the swelling buds on the cherry trees, and headed to work. I parked my car in the parking lot and headed into the company with the other employees. Those around me yawning or engaged in small talk probably have no idea that I'm the CEO. I rarely show my face in front of the employees, so it's understandable. In a normal company, it would be unheard of for employees not to know their CEO's face. But our company is only a few years old, and I prefer to work rather than act as a typical CEO, so this is the situation. Back when I was an ordinary employee at a toxic company, I couldn't have imagined this. Distressed by my job at a toxic company, I resigned. Shortly thereafter, I chose to start my own business. Running the company isn't always smooth, but there's a lot of fulfillment, so I don't regret my past decisions. As I walked through the office corridors thinking this, I reached my office and noticed that my 20-something secretary wasn't there. I have a secretary named Lisa who helps me with my work, but she's been a bit under the weather for the past few days and is taking time off. She looked pale when I saw her yesterday, which worried me. If she's just not managing her health, I wouldn't be so concerned. I hope she's getting proper rest. I found myself muttering in concern for her, who wasn't here, as she looked quite unwell yesterday. If the reason for her rest was just poor health management, I probably wouldn't be this worried. She's not a child, so I don't usually fuss over her. However, the problem is that Lisa has recently been stalked by a strange male employee. She's modestly beautiful, so it's common for men to approach her, but this time the guy is particularly persistent in troubling her. Apparently, he always approaches her when she leaves work, follows her around, and has even sent expensive brand items to her home after figuring out where she lives. She's been a great help to me in various ways, so I want to do something for her. However, as the CEO, I can't just focus on that. Thinking about today's schedule, I decided to start working at the desk in the center of the room. I began organizing some documents and writing on those that needed filling out, but within a few minutes, my cell phone started ringing. Just as I was getting focused, this interruption came. I made a grim face and looked at the phone screen. The caller was a man of my age. He works in the sales department of a major corporate client, but lately, he's been calling me frequently, which is troubling. Again, unlike your company, I don't have time to waste, you know. Don't be so stiff. I'm your friend, right? This man, Ethan, on the phone, was my middle school classmate. I became friends with him, who was a delinquent back then, after I lectured him, and he oddly found me to be a reliable guy. Since then, we've continued this relationship, though he's a bit lax when it comes to company rules. Ethan's company manufactures gaming hardware and is a major company known to many. However, he's loved by people of all ages at his company and often makes these personal calls. I know I should lecture him properly at some point, but it seems he has a clear purpose today. Ethan, a big and friendly guy, is liked by everyone, but he has a habit of repeating the same story endlessly when he has a serious problem. So it's obvious. By the way, about the old lady in the neighborhood, the topic he brought up is one I've heard several times, so I already know the punchline. The old lady got a bad back and couldn't walk, so you carried her home on your back, and you were almost late for work, right? That's right. How did you know? I've heard the same story 5 times now. You must be mentally prepared by now. If you have a problem, just spit it out. Expressing my irritation, I spoke sharply, and he fell silent within a. After a moment, Ethan seemed ready and started talking about his problem. Apparently, he's having a tough time with a new supervisor at his workplace. This supervisor constantly belittles Ethan for being physically skilled but intellectually lacking and for being inferior to others because he's a middle school dropout. Ethan added that since he mentioned his educational background during his introduction, the supervisor's attitude has worsened. It seems the insults aren't just about Ethan. The supervisor also belittles his family, saying things like his parents must be worthless for raising a failure, and he'd like to see what kind of upbringing they gave. That's tough. Being a middle school dropout myself, I've experienced similar insults, but in Ethan's case, It's pretty severe. Those words could have broken a weaker person. I used to be a delinquent, so I think it's my fault I couldn't pursue further education. I've come to terms with it. But when it comes to my parents, I can't tolerate it, and I hate it. Got it. Let's meet at our usual pub tonight. I'll listen to the details there. I'll be waiting with beer and snacks like always. Thanks. Honestly, I'm quite busy with work, but this is for a friend. I'll have to work through my break to make time. That day, after somehow finishing my work, I headed to the usual pub. In the chilly night air, I opened the door and entered the establishment. Hey, over here. Looking around inside, I spotted Ethan. He was waving at me from a corner table. Thanks for coming. As I said on the phone, I've ordered food and drinks for us. Approaching him, I saw several empty beer mugs on the table. Tonight's on me, so eat and drink whatever you like. Of course, my time as a CEO isn't cheap, you know. Yeah, I know. We bantered lightly and started with a beer. Savoring the beer, I looked at Ethan. Ethan is straightforward, or simple, depending on how you look at it. Spending time talking with him is always comfortable because it doesn't require pondering complex matters. But I wasn't here just for small talk today, so I focused and stared at him intently. He seemed usual, but I could sense a hint of tension. So, what's this about? You wanted to discuss something with me, right? With that, I carefully observed his expressions and reactions as the conversation progressed. Well, actually, Ethan began, scratching his head and looking troubled. The harassing supervisor Ethan was dealing with was a man in his 30s named Mike, who had a wife named Linda. I was surprised to learn this because I also knew Linda. He's married, huh? I remembered her well from our school days when she often interfered with conversations I had with Ethan. She came from a wealthy family, always dressed in brand-name clothes, and was a woman of model-like appearance. Mike, her husband, seemed to be using his wife's wealth, wearing brand-name clothes, shoes, and watches. Not only does he target people with lower educational backgrounds, but he also goes after those he perceives as poor. It's tough. Ethan is mentally strong, so he seems okay for now, but such workplace occurrences are definitely not good. The real problem seemed to be with the other employees. Some of the more timid ones had apparently started seeing a doctor due to the harassment from their supervisor. The fact that Ethan is troubled by others' issues rather than his own really shows what a good person he has always been. I remember back in middle school, how he became the leader of the delinquents, unable to refuse those who were outcasts. I was a member of the school discipline committee back then, and the time I tried to set him on the right path led to quite a commotion. It's a nostalgic story, but reminiscing should be saved for another time. You were close with President Smith of our company, right? Mr. Smith, a good but stubborn and proud man, might be more receptive to you bringing up the issue. That's true. Since our companies have dealings, I'll subtly bring it up. We do have various transactions and owe a lot to each other. That's a relief. Man, I'm glad. I can handle these kinds of things alone. Seeing the problem possibly getting resolved, Ethan's face brightened up, and he enthusiastically began eating the snacks on the table. That's my share, you know. Don't sweat the small stuff. We can just order more. Shrugging, I grabbed the menu to refill our diminishing snacks. I ordered a hearty dish since I hadn't had dinner yet, and we updated each other on recent happenings. A few minutes later, while savoring the hamburger that was served, Ethan started a conversation saying, "By the way," and began talking about his plans for the coming weeks. Apparently, he was going to participate in a surfing competition overseas in a few months. It was an amateur event, so the skill level wasn't demanding, but he invited me to come and watch if I was free. The sea is beautiful, and you can see fish swimming even in the shallow waters. Pretty cool, huh? It's a tempting invitation, but it depends on my work schedule. As intriguing as it was, I couldn't easily commit considering my company's needs. Always the serious one. Well, you're the CEO, so I guess it can't be helped. It was a crucial time for the company's growth, so I needed to carefully plan my schedule in consultation with Lisa. Months later, I didn't know if I could make it, but miraculously my schedule cleared up, and I was able to go support Ethan. Lisa, looking tired from the stalker issue, was also invited, and we boarded the same flight. We took a different flight from Ethan and planned to meet at the venue. After hours of travel, I was surprised to find Ethan had a lot of fans at the competition site. Who knew he was so popular? I always thought of Ethan as just an average-looking guy, but in swimwear, he looked quite different. His well-toned muscles probably appealed to those who liked that type. Every move he made was met with cheers. So, not wanting to monopolize a friend, after a brief greeting, I spent time strolling along the beach until the competition started. Just watching the beautiful sea with fish swimming was a surprisingly good change of pace. While enjoying the popsicle Lisa bought for me, I noticed a familiar face in the crowd. It was Linda, whom Ethan had mentioned a few months back. I hadn't seen her since graduation, but remembered her clearly for her model-like beauty. I wondered why she was here. As I gazed, puzzled, she seemed to notice me as well. It seems she remembered me too, as she quickly approached. "Why are you here, a dropout and a poor man?" Linda greeted me with words that would normally irritate anyone, but she was always like this in middle school, so I remained calm. I admit I was poor, but people don't stay the same forever, right? A guy like you, who used to hang out with the delinquent Ethan, can't possibly have a decent life. You're probably just putting on airs or want a trip abroad by some fluke, right? Linda was truly the epitome of arrogance. Ever since our school days, she seemed to find satisfaction only in looking down on others. She probably believes that everyone who dropped out of school leads a worthless life. Sighing, I held back an agitated Lisa with a gesture and addressed Linda. "What brings you here, then?" Linda, whose family was wealthy, used to travel abroad frequently on her parents' money even during our student days. Asking if it was the same case this time, it turned out my guess wasn't off the mark. "I'm on vacation, funded by Daddy's money. It's the privilege of a rich daughter to travel abroad easily." It baffled me how she could be so arrogant using not her own money but her father's. I couldn't comprehend her way of thinking. It's her father who's remarkable, not Linda herself. "Well, that's great. Your father is impressive," I said honestly, but she didn't seem to understand my words accurately. "Of course, now that you get it, disappear from my sight before your poverty rubs off on me." Puffing up her chest, she waved her hand dismissively as if to shoo me away. Talking to her any longer would only sour my mood. I thought of leaving with Lisa. But just then, Lisa exclaimed, "Oh, no," and looked shocked. I think she's the wife of the man who's been stalking me." Hearing this, I couldn't help but stare intently at Linda. Normally, such a stare might anger her, but it seemed Linda had something more pressing on her mind. She glared at Lisa with a fierce expression. "What's with this woman? Don't say such rude things just because you're a bit cute. My husband would never approach another woman. No, I'm sure." He showed me a photo of his wife. There was no doubt about whose words to believe. I stepped forward to shield Lisa from Linda. "Your husband seems to be causing trouble for my Lisa. Do you have any idea about this?" "I already told you, no. I don't have anything to talk about with someone like you, at the bottom of the social ladder." Linda, angered, started to walk away. I knew I had to be careful not to jump to conclusions. Although long talks with Linda tend to become confrontational, it's essential to confirm facts before acting. "Okay, show me a photo of your husband. If it's a misunderstanding, I'll apologize properly and do anything you say." So I deliberately humbled myself. Doing anything she said seemed to appeal to her. Reluctantly, but complying, she showed me the phone screen. I can't believe I have to do this. Here, this is my husband. I thought it odd how she referred to her own husband, but ignored it to avoid complicating things. Lisa confirmed with a nod, "That's the man who's been stalking me." "What? You have a grudge against my husband? Trying to defame him? Handing around dropouts? You must be no good either. Don't get too carried away, or I'll write bad things about you on social media and make your life hell." Considering the extreme things Linda started saying, I remembered the stalker's characteristics Lisa had described. I began listing them to Linda. "Does your husband have a habit of dropping his gaze before he starts stalking?" "What? Yes. But how do you know that? And when he wipes sweat, he first checks if his handkerchief is clean, right?" "That's true." But, although Linda didn't explicitly affirm it, her reactions made it clear I wasn't off the mark. After listing about 3 more characteristics that only someone close would know, she collapsed to the ground. "No way, I don't believe it. My husband." Lisa, seemingly feeling pity, whispered to me so that Linda couldn't hear. "Also, the man stalking me seems to be causing trouble for your friend Ethan as well. Just a few days ago, he boasted about punishing a young subordinate named Ethan." Lisa, emotionally drained from everything, knew Ethan was my friend but had forgotten to report this to me. I never imagined that the dots would connect like this. But in a way, it was fortunate that everything was coming to light here. I extended a hand to the collapsed Linda. "If you have even a shred of conscience, can you help us out? What do you want me to do?" Her wary gaze fixed on me, but she seemed too drained to reject me as she did before because of my dropout status. "You'd want to clear up what your husband is doing, right? Help us, and we'll help you." Hesitant, Linda took my hand. Her arrogance aside, she seemed to genuinely love her husband. So she wanted to clarify the situation. I wasn't keen on cooperating with her due to our past, but it was necessary now. Her presence would be vital for what was to come. Linda and Mike were apparently on separate activities at the time. Mike was touring tourist spots, and they were supposed to meet up after the surfing competition. We quickly started devising a plan to uncover the truth before then. Mike appears to be quite capable at his job and is known to be a sharp individual. Additionally, he's the type to be on high alert, so there's a chance he would evade a straightforward conversation. Therefore, we needed to approach him in an unexpected manner. While brainstorming, a call came through on my phone. It was from an employee at the company, needing clarification on something. "Mr. Anderson, I'm a bit confused about something. Can I ask you about it, since I can't reach anyone else? It's about when you helped us with our work." "Ah, that matter. I had once helped with regular employee tasks due to a staffing shortage, and they wanted to clarify something about that." After answering a few questions and hanging up, I noticed Linda staring at me. "You were talking so authoritatively, like you're some company president." "It's not like, I actually am." Linda looked skeptical, but Lisa's nod confirmed it, leaving her speechless. Then Linda bombarded Lisa with questions about the company's name, size, and employee count. After hearing the answers, Linda seemed to finally accept the truth. "You're the president of a large corporation. Want to see my business card?" When I showed her my business card, she seemed to finally believe it wasn't a lie. The world is full of unbelievable things. Maybe I should buy a lottery ticket now. Right now, you sound incredibly naive. While I understand the sentiment that good things might follow, her words made her sound unintelligent. My becoming a president was due to my own efforts, not mere chance. Realizing what she said, Linda blushed slightly and retorted, "Shut up." "Fine. Anyway, we've got a riff plan, so help us out." "I get it. Just because you're an old acquaintance, don't order me around." Her not protesting about being directed by a dropout might be a sign of growth. That's why I explained my plan to Linda. And together with Lisa, we ironed out the details and revised our strategy. Later, watching the competition, Ethan performed well in the surfing semifinals, setting a good record. However, despite his best efforts, he narrowly missed out in the final. After congratulating Ethan on his efforts, I explained the situation to him and asked for his cooperation. As the evening sun began to set, the surfing competition tents were being folded and the audience started to leave. We continued to wait for Mike. Interestingly, upon seeing Ethan being fawned over by fans, Linda looked perplexed and offered him a sort of apology. Her inability to be straightforward led her to say, "I thought you were just a muscle-brained dropout," which hardly sounded like an apology, but I considered it progress nonetheless. I didn't want to tease Linda and ruin the somewhat positive atmosphere we had managed to create. If Ethan had been bothered, I wouldn't have been ready to forgive, but he seemed unperturbed. "Well, thanks for apologizing," he said, easily forgiving Linda. This lightened the mood among us. Ethan's straightforward and unburdened character was truly a blessing in this situation. While we were exchanging these interactions, Mike arrived. He looked like an ordinary person, but knowing he was the one troubling Ethan and Lisa made me angry. So, I decided to start acting as if I were arguing with Linda. "You've always been like this, looking down on people for being dropouts. Of course, dropouts are all at the bottom of humanity. That's what my father always said. They're just meant to be bossed around and work for others." Mike, witnessing our argument, looked bewildered and glanced over at us. That's when Lisa stepped in front of Mike. He seemed surprised to see her, a woman supposed to be back in America, here, abroad. However, he soon had bigger concerns. Lisa spoke with Mike, who then exclaimed loudly, "That man is President Anderson, who deals with my company." As planned, we revealed my identity to make Mike anxious. He tried to intervene, sweating profusely. But then Ethan appeared and addressed him. "Mike, what are you doing here? Did you come to see my competition?" "Competition? Why is Ethan here?" "Actually, there was a surfing competition here today. I did pretty well and even gained some fans. I'll treat you all today to say thanks." Mike seemed quite confused as he listened to Ethan's rapid-fire explanation. Seeing a new side of someone he had looked down upon, he might have thought he was dreaming. Fans for dropout Ethan. Competing. Impossible. His feelings were understandable. Anyone would be overwhelmed in such a situation. However, if he were in a state to make rational judgments, we wouldn't be able to draw out his true intentions. Therefore, we needed to keep him in the state of confusion a while longer. I faced Linda, focusing on our act of arguing. I continued to act angry, raising my voice as if in a all argument. "You've always said I was trash for hanging out with delinquents in middle school, right? I won't let you forget that. Do you really enjoy labeling people so much? Despite not knowing much about Ethan and the others, you sure made a lot of assumptions. All delinquents are worthless. It's clear without thinking. Birds of a feather flock together. Associating with bottom dwellers proves your poor judgment." I was getting heated up, and it was becoming hard to tell if I was acting or speaking my mind. Remembering high school days, I felt my temper rising and knew it was time to cool down. Sensing the right moment, I caught Mike intervening and sent a signal to Linda. "Wait, Linda. That man is President Anderson, with whom we do business. Don't yell like that, Jack. That's so typical of a dropout. My husband has never raised his voice over petty squabbles." Linda, catching my cue, gave a small nod. "My husband is a division manager at a major corporation, quite different from you, a dropout, huh?" Hearing this, I delivered the critical line. "Well, he's getting fired tomorrow, you know." "What?" Linda, of course, was acting, not genuinely shocked. However, Mike, hearing this, was visibly surprised. What? The man, Mike, hearing the same words from his wife, seemed frozen, unable to comprehend the situation. Feeling the need to press on, I explained the reasons in rapid succession. You've been berating your subordinates and exerting excessive pressure on them, it seems. We've already looked into it. Since your company has closed dealings with mine, I'm quite familiar with the internal matters. Your husband is likely to be fired soon. While it's true that we have closed business dealings, I wouldn't normally know about an ordinary employee. But suggesting the possibility was enough for now. That can't be true, really. It's not a lie. I heard he's been stalking my Lisa, sending her expensive gifts, and following her after work. We have evidence, so the police might get involved. Having finished the act, I looked at Linda and Mike. Mike, breaking into a sweat, said nothing and, grabbing Linda's arm, ran off. I don't know what happened to them after that. Despite feeling that we couldn't just leave them be, we ended up losing track of them while following. Even when I tried calling on my cell phone, I couldn't get through, leaving me worried for the rest of the day. But the next day, on our way to the airport with Ethan and Lisa, Linda finally contacted me. Her tearful voice informed me that their discussion hadn't gone well. I've decided to divorce Mike. Linda hadn't revealed that our argument was a ruse, and it seemed she had been written off by her husband. Are you sure? Not telling the truth. He said he never really loved me, that he married me only because of my father's pressure. He thought being with a wealthy girl would be beneficial. Well, I guess I never really saw people for who they are. It's my own fault. Though I never liked Linda much, I couldn't kick someone when they were down. I gripped my phone silently, unable to find the right words. Switching places with me, Ethan seemed to have something he wanted to say. After asking for my permission, he borrowed my cell phone to speak with Linda. Hey, Linda, remember how you used to brag about making fancy cakes in middle school? I remembered it well. It was the day we made cakes in home economics class. Linda brought luxury fruits, truffles, caviar, and other unnecessary ingredients, gaining the attention of other students. That happened, yeah, so what? You ate them in front of us, saying we poor people couldn't afford such things. So, treat us next time. Even Ethan, often considered a muscle brain, must have known that his words were said in sarcasm. However, he brought up that topic deliberately to encourage Linda. All right, I don't know if it'll make amends, but okay, you've always been so positive. Even in middle school, I was probably just jealous and acted out. It seemed even someone like Linda was swayed by Ethan's genuine nature. People like Ethan, who can become friends with others without any ulterior motives or calculations, are rare and valuable. As a CEO, frequently encountering the hidden facets of people makes the task of building new relationships somewhat daunting. Having a friend like Ethan was indeed fortunate. We returned to our home country a bit more lighthearted. Linda started preparing for her divorce. However, it seems Mike continued to linger around Lisa. While he apparently didn't speak to her, his stalking behavior continued. Despite being served with a restraining order by the police, he seemingly hadn't learned his lesson and continued sending gifts. Aware of his superior's disgraceful behavior, Ethan began to reflect on his own actions. Regretting calling me in violation of company rules, he now restrains himself from doing so. Even fundamentally good people can fall astray when those around them are too lenient. But both Linda and Ethan managed to turn things around. Therefore, it stands to reason that Mike, too, should be able to make a fresh start. However, there's still no sign of him changing his behavior. Weeks later, as we were busy welcoming new employees, Lisa came to me with a troubled face. Apparently, Mike's stalking hadn't ceased. He had been quiet initially, but recently started approaching her again. I was astonished that Mike still had the energy to continue his stalking behavior after everything that had happened overseas. Perhaps he didn't understand the gravity of his situation. Irritated, I told Lisa to contact the police if Mike showed up again. That day, after finishing work as usual, I didn't expect to encounter Mike. As I was about to escort Lisa to the nearest station for her safety, I spotted him. He was standing behind some trees near our company and started running towards us as we approached. "Please, talk to your company about me. It's all a misunderstanding. I need to explain." Lisa looked scared, so I stepped in between them. "If I get fired, I'll become a laughingstock. Please, convince Mr. Anderson. Mr. Smith at my company is stubborn. He won't listen to anyone's opinion." His pathetic demeanor was evident as he approached me, smiling nervously. "Mr. Anderson, I haven't done anything wrong. I don't know what Ethan told you, but you're being deceived. It's true that people can make rational decisions when cornered." In a calm state of mind, he would have realized that his actions would only lead to bad outcomes, but the fear of getting fired was driving him to foolish acts. I sighed internally and addressed Mike. "Why continue sending expensive gifts to Lisa if it's all a misunderstanding? And those gifts, they are reportedly stolen from other female employees, aren't they?" "I didn't. It's a misunderstanding. I wouldn't do such a thing." Before returning from overseas, I had called Mike's company, and they had conducted some investigations. What I'm speaking about now is the truth that was uncovered as a result of the investigations. The team was competent, and by the time we returned to America, many things had come to light, which was a relief. You repeat troubling behavior when drinking, forcibly invite favorite employees for drinks, create havoc in bars, and get banned. Is all this a misunderstanding too? It turned out Mike was like a dustbin. Hit it, and all sorts of dirt comes out. Even though my claim of his imminent firing was a bluff, the newly discovered misconduct indeed started real discussions about his termination. President Smith of his company was exasperated by Mike's behavior. "Please, don't involve Lisa or me any further. If you can't accept this, I'll call the police right here." As I glared at him, Mike's face paled. He didn't expect his misdeeds to be known so precisely. Yet, he kept making excuses, trembling. "I haven't done anything wrong. Ethan is just a muscle-brained dropout. And I thought the expensive items were better suited for a beautiful young woman than an older woman." Considering his attitude towards these actions as normal, he must have a significantly distorted sense of ethics. It's possible that throughout his life, there was no one to reprimand him or correct his behavior. Likely, he never encountered a situation that forced him to confront and correct his mistakes. "I'm just a victim here. I did nothing wrong. Why should I be fired for doing the right thing?" he shouted, red-faced with anger. People at the bottom of society aren't much use alive. Wouldn't young, beautiful women appreciate brand items more than old ladies? Is education and appearance that important to you? Of course it is. That's common sense. He probably won't change his perspective. His convictions are so deeply ingrained that no one's words can reach him. Feeling a sense of emptiness, I urged Lisa to leave and turned our backs on him. "Let's go. It's better to stay inside the company for a while before heading home." "Okay." Mike continued to rant, but we ignored him. After spending some time in the company's break room, we saw that he had left. Afterward, Mike apparently resorted to desperate measures. He tried offering money to those he had troubled, and conversely, he threatened them to prevent them from speaking out against him. However, once Linda became aware of this, she was furious, leading to constant marital disputes. Eventually, he was fired and left the company. The divorce proceedings with Linda progressed, and they officially separated. After being fired, Mike drifted through various jobs before moving to a rural area where he knew no one. Rumors suggest that after moving to a new location, he continued to struggle, eventually resorting to crime out of desperation and landing in prison. After Mike was terminated, Ethan and his colleagues felt a sense of relief. A compassionate and gentle superior took Mike's place, restoring peace and stability to their daily routines. The employees who had been frequenting the hospital have regained their health. Following her divorce from Mike, Linda seems to be forming a positive relationship with Ethan. Their reconciliation began abroad when she apologized, and since then, they have been spending more time together. Lisa and I also often spend our days off with them, leading to regular double dates. To be honest, since that incident, I've developed quite an interest in Lisa, but as it's my first experience with love, I'm uncertain about how to proceed. So, I've been seeking advice from Linda, who has been unexpectedly caring and sisterly, and I'm doing my best. Having become softer and less arrogant, Linda now feels more like a friend to me. I wish I could show my middle school self how things have turned out. Our company, now home to many new employees, is also moving in a positive direction. Currently, I'm in the process of selecting a ring for a proposal, hoping that goes well too. Once the proposal is accepted, I plan to have a wedding with Lisa and start building a happy, large family. Remember how our roles reversed, said my former classmate, standing before me. Back in middle school, she was the picture of youth and health, but now, her former self was nowhere to be seen. She smiled weakly, her figure emaciated. Why? She was so kind to me. What happened to her that led to this state? I invited her to a cafe to find out what had happened to her since we graduated from middle school. What she shared was a past so heart-rending that even as a listener, I found myself on the verge of tears. My name is Jason. Just a regular male student. I wish I could say that, but it's not that simple. My family is just my mom. We're a single-parent household. My dad didn't die. He left us for another woman. I barely remember his face, so it must have been a long time ago. Before I knew it, life without a dad became the norm. Since he left, my mom has been raising me on her own. She never complained and loved me more than anything, working every day. I wanted to repay her effort, so no matter how tough it got, I tried not to be a burden. But the harsh reality is that effort isn't always enough. If only it was just my dad who disappeared. But he took all our savings and bank bucks with him. Probably to divert as much attention as possible to himself, likely for his mistress. Because of his selfish actions, we were really strapped for cash. Not just tight on money like other families. We lived in a dirt-cheap apartment, usually having just one meal a day. It's not that we had nothing to eat, but we couldn't always have 3 full meals. This was when I was in middle school. My school didn't provide school meals. Lunch was always packed. But my mom worked from dawn till dusk and was too exhausted to even take a bath before falling asleep. There was no way she had time to make my lunch. Sure, she might have if I asked, but I couldn't bring myself to ask that of her, working hard for my sake. But going without lunch during my growing years was hell. So, I tried making lunch myself when she wasn't around. Minutes later, what sat on my lunchbox was as black as the darkest night. I thought it might suck me in if I touched it. Turns out, I had zero talent for cooking. My mom wasn't particularly fond of cooking but could make decent meals. So, I guess the one to blame is still my dad. I always brought a slice of bread with strawberry jam on it. Everyone else spread out lunches made by their parents or grandparents, chatting and enjoying their break. But I didn't belong there. Not because I was ostracized, but because their lunches were too dazzling. What everyone else had in their hands seemed unattainable for me. Watching them with envy, I felt incredibly small nibbling on bread. I couldn't stay in the classroom. Thinking so, I declined my friend's invitations and sought a place where I could be alone. My only companion was my bread. I had two options, the rooftop or behind the gym. Unfortunately, the rooftop was locked, so that was out of the question. It seems like hanging out on the rooftop during lunch is only a thing in TV drama series. So, I decided to eat behind the gym. I could faintly hear the voices of students enjoying their break on the nearby playground, but no one ever came behind the gym. There, I could savor my solitude, unseen by anyone. Until that day. I was late for lunch that day because of committee work. But my lunch was just a slice of bread, so it didn't take long to eat. I hurried to my usual spot behind the gym. There was someone already there. It was a first. The first time I saw someone else here during lunch break. And it was a familiar female student. Her name was Sarah. A girl from my class. She was the daughter of the president of the Kensington Group. In other words, super rich. But she wasn't snobby or arrogant. She was just a normal, kind girl to everyone. We weren't close, just exchanged greetings. There was Sarah, squatting in front of a drain behind the gym, doing something. What is she doing here? I wondered and moved to where I could see her hands. She was holding a lunchbox. She had it tilted open. It looked like it would fall, and just as I thought that, it happened. What a waste, I blurted out without thinking. Sarah flinched at my voice. She turned quickly and hid her lunch behind her. She must have been surprised. Probably didn't realize I was watching from behind. As she stumbled over her words, I immediately approached her. I'm terribly sorry for startling you, but are you not going to eat that lunch? She was the daughter of a company president. So I spoke to her in the most dignified language I knew. I hoped, oh how I hoped. If you're not going to eat it, may I have it, please? I was famished from having gym class right before lunch. My stomach felt like it was stuck to my back. A slice of bread was too harsh for a growing middle school boy. Her lunch looked lavish even from a distance, and the quantity seemed too much for a girl's lunch. If she was going to throw it away, I'd be grateful for even a half bite. Sarah was momentarily stunned by my eagerness. Sure, you can have it. Maybe it was because of my refined language, but she agreed. Really? May I truly have it? I couldn't believe my ears and asked again. Yeah, really. She said and handed it to me. That's when I lost consciousness. When I came to, the lunchbox was empty, and the aroma of a tangy sauce lingered in my mouth. After finishing the meal, I thanked her. You don't need to thank me. I didn't make it. Sarah said. Did you forget your lunch today? She peered into my face. No, actually I have bread, but that's all I have. Saying that, I took out clumsily slice of bread. Just bread with strawberry jam, that's all I have. Her eyes widened with surprise as she asked. That's not much for a boy, right? Are you on a diet? Would someone on a diet devour someone else's lunch like a beast? I had never told anyone before, but I explained how my father disappeared, and how my mother, working tirelessly, didn't have time to make lunch. Sarah listened silently until the end. Then she spoke. But Chasen, you're amazing. Making your lunch yourself. It even looks tasty. She complimented me. It might have been the first time someone other than my mother praised me, and I felt a sense of pride. As a thank you for sharing my story, Sarah began to talk about her own family. In summary, her stepmother wasn't her biological mother. Her real mother had passed away, and her current mother was her father's second wife. The stepmother was nice to Sarah in front of her father, but harassed her when he wasn't around. Even the lunchbox was part of that harassment. Despite knowing Sarah's small appetite, she packed it with too much food, including things Sarah disliked. If Sarah left anything, her stepmother would say, "How can you leave it when I worked so hard to make this?" and would become hysterical. That's why she was trying to throw away the contents. I see. No wonder the quantity was so much. To my starving self, it was a feast, but for her, it was an overwhelming amount. "So, you haven't eaten lunch yet today?" She nodded silently to my question. Embarrassed, I offered her my bread. "Here, please have it. It's wrapped in plastic, so I didn't touch it directly." She took the bread from my hand and smiled. "Thank you," she said, enjoying the bread. After that day, we started exchanging lunches. Our meeting place was behind the gym. We shared stories and complaints while eating. Though we were in the same classroom, we hadn't talked much before, but we found we had a lot in common. After eating, I'd take a short nap, while Sarah drew in her sketchbook. She was in the art club and amazingly good at drawing. The sound of her pencil on a paper was soothing, and I enjoyed those moments. Life became smoother for me from there. I was able to go to a nearby public high school with a decent academic standing, and my mom cried tears of joy when I got accepted. Sarah ended up attending a boarding school for young ladies, located a bit far from where I was. She wanted to get away from her mother as soon as possible, and I remember her being incredibly excited the day she got accepted, her drawings more aggressive than usual. Then came our last lunch together. The thought of not being able to exchange lunches with her anymore felt a bit sad. On her last day, Sarah was still drawing in her sketchbook. Looking at her profile, I considered confessing my fleeting feelings, but wanting to keep this youthful memory to myself, I suppressed my tender emotions and etched her image into my mind. It wasn't long after I started high school. My mother remarried. My stepfather, in his first marriage, had been caring for his disabled parents and hadn't had the chance to meet someone until now. He wasn't exactly handsome, but he was sincere and kind, a good match for my mother. With a stable income from his job, my mother quit her exhausting work and found a full-time job with less burden. My stepfather maintained a comfortable distance with me, so we quickly developed a relationship where I could call him Dad. Thanks to his support, I smoothly progressed in my studies and got into a renowned university. I landed a job at a major corporation, leading a life far richer than anything I could have imagined as a child. A few years into my job, I was leading busy yet fulfilling days, but due to a transfer within the company, I had to move. While I was excited about starting a new life in a place somewhat distant from my parents' home, I wasn't without anxiety about living in an unfamiliar area. Once I had settled into my new home, I went out to get groceries. There was a charming, small shopping district nearby where I usually did my shopping. Even after a few years of working, cooking remained a challenge for me. I had practiced enough to make spaghetti, but my specialty was still macaroni and cheese. My mother had tried to teach me, but I was utterly hopeless. It's okay not to force yourself to practice. There are plenty of fast food restaurants. Thus, I was consoled. At the end of the shopping street, I discovered a small hamburger shop. My mother had said fast food restaurant meals were fine, but I never really liked them. I was afraid that relying solely on fast food restaurant meals at my age might be bad for my health. This small hamburger shop, though modest, was clean and had delicious-looking hamburgers on display. They seemed homemade. Yes, homemade meals are the best. Perhaps because I hadn't had much experience with homemade meals in the past, I quickly developed a fondness for those made by human hands, rather than those mass-produced in factories. The fact that the shop was run by an elderly lady was a bonus point. The atmosphere of an established store made the hamburgers look even more appetizing. Looking at the hamburgers on display, I saw a variety of options. There were ham hamburgers, meat and vegetable hamburgers, bacon hamburgers, and more. All looked delicious and were priced affordably. Even a student could afford to buy two. I picked up a hamburger. That's when I felt a sense of déjà vu, not with the hamburgers, but with the picture on the wrapping paper. A subtle landscape painted casually on the wrapper. The wrapping paper was casually adorned with a delicate landscape painting. It was beautiful. It felt familiar, as if I had seen it somewhere before, but perhaps I was mistaken. I took the daily special hamburgers to the register. "Did you make these?" In response to my question, the elderly lady replied, No, I can't stand for long because of my bad legs, so I just minds the chop, but these are made by a beautiful lady, so they are really delicious." With a smile, she packed the hamburgers into a bag for me. Back home, the lunch tasted somehow nostalgic, like something I had eaten before. Since then, I became a regular at that small hamburger shop in the shopping district. Sometimes there was someone other than the elderly lady at the counter, apparently her husband. "I wondered why my wife dressed up lately. It's because of you, young man," he'd say with a hearty laugh while selling the hamburgers. Besides these two, I never saw anyone else at the hamburger shop. I wondered where the beautiful lady the elderly lady mentioned was. One day, as usual, I went to the hamburger shop, only to find a blind man shouting in front of the shop. "Refund my money. The lunch was terrible." The man was shouting furiously. The person apologizing to the man was neither the usual elderly lady nor her husband. It was a slender woman I had never seen before. Behind her, the husband was saying, "Bad, maybe there's something wrong with your taste buds, not our lunch." He was arguing back just as fiercely. "Quiet down, will you?" the elderly lady conned her husband. Indeed, it seemed like the husband's competitive nature was escalating the situation. I pulled out my cell phone and began speaking loudly. "Yes, that's right. At the exit of the shopping district, there's a man causing a big scene here." That's what I said. Of course, I wasn't really connected to anyone. Hearing my voice, the blond man quickly left the front of the hamburger shop. "Thank you, dear. This foolish husband of mine just had to say something, causing trouble for poor Sarah." The elderly lady nudged her husband. "It's the fault of that young pike for criticizing Sarah's cooking," he grumbled, heading back inside. I was honestly stunned. The fact that both of them referred to the slim woman as Sarah sent a shock through me. Sarah, that was the name of a girl from high school I was close to. The woman, who had just been shouted at, turned to me, surprised, and then said with a hint of sadness, "Jason, is that you?" she asked hesitantly, almost as if praying. Her expression seemed to convey a wish that I wasn't who she thought I was. "Yeah." I could only nod in response. "Do you remember me? I'm sorry for looking like this. It's like our roles have reversed." She smiled weakly. Seeing her smile, the image of Sarah from our school days overlapped. Though much thinner now, her face still bore traces of the old Sarah. "I remember you, but why are you here? This is quite far from our hometown." Sarah said it would be a long story. "Today's been a lot, so I'm closing the shop early. You can go home now, Sarah." The elderly lady, having watched us, told her while waving her hand. She handed me a few hamburgers. They were oddly cold. After that, Sarah and I sat down at a nearby cafe to talk. What she shared was heartbreakingly unbelievable. Right after she started high school, her stepmother and father had a son. With the birth of a son, the presidency of the Kensington Group naturally shifted to Sarah's younger brother. As a result, Sarah's position in a Kensington family became considerably diminished, with some even deeming her as no longer useful. I was furious, but the story continued. After graduating high school, Sarah was forced into arranged marriages to strengthen the family's business. Her chosen spouse was a man 10 years her senior, the son of a business associate. Although he wasn't her type, she married him, thinking it was for the family's sake. However, her husband neglected her, spending every night out with his mistress. Don't think our son is at fault for partying. You're the problem for failing to keep his heart. Sarah lived in a daily cycle of such demeaning comments. Finally, Sarah's husband, after having a child with his mistress, forced Sarah out of their home. Trying to return to her parents' home, Sarah found they wouldn't accept her back. Betrayed by her husband and abandoned by her family, she was left utterly depleted, both physically and emotionally. It was the couple who ran the hamburger shop who took her in. They gave me a place to stay when I had nowhere else to go, and they even let me work here. They are really kind people. Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. Back then, she was an enviable, sparkling figure, admired by everyone. Sarah was loved by all, treating everyone equally regardless of gender. I was appalled to learn that such a person had her educational opportunities taken away due to outdated values and had her life crushed by her husband and family. I'm really left with nothing. I feel completely empty. I wanted to do something for her. After all, I still hadn't repaid the kindness I received from Sarah behind the gymnasium. Hey, Sarah, I've got something I want to discuss with you. I had a proposal for her. The major company I joined was a design firm founded by my stepfather. I was in charge of the media content department there. True, my joining the company was initially through my stepfather's connections. However, I found my fit in the design industry and consistently delivered results, so no one ever mentioned my connections anymore. I had even made some good friends there. He would technically be my subordinate in terms of position, but we joined a company at the same time, so he's essentially a peer. Among them, I was particularly close with Kevin. Kevin was particularly good at delegating work and had a knack for knowing when to ease off. We were currently looking for an illustrator who could create background images for a project. Kevin usually excelled in finding talented illustrators, but this time, we were having trouble. We have illustrators, but finding one with a soft touch for background images, that's the issue. Can't you do something about it? I asked Kevin not just for any background artist, but for a creator with a gentle, warm touch. No compromises. After a serious sigh, he responded, all right, I'll bring you an amazing illustrator, one that'll impress even you. Too bad, Kevin. This time, I've found an excellent illustrator before you did. Yes, my proposal to Sarah was for her to work as an illustrator with us. Sure enough, she was the one who had drawn the pictures on the hamburgers wrappers. Her illustrations were impressive enough to be an immediate asset to our company. How about working as an illustrator from home? Sarah quickly shook her head. My drawings are nothing special, just a hobby. I took out several of the hamburgers wrappers I had saved. Every time I bought hamburgers, I carefully folded and preserved its wrapper. These are your drawings, right? I don't think the elderly couple could have drawn these. It's a waste to have such talent and not use it. The prints are just homemade, right? We'd really like you to join us. I begged her. I learned that she could also draw on a tablet. That made her even more desirable for our company. Still, she was hesitant. How about trying it out? If you don't like it, you can quit anytime. We'll definitely pay you. Finally, she nodded in agreement. I could almost picture Kevin's frustrated face from afar. The next day, I brought Kevin to the hamburger shop. I can stand that you found an illustrator before me. It's truly regrettable," he declared, eager to see the talented artist for himself. Standing in front of the hamburger shop, the elderly lady greeted us. "Oh, you brought a friend today, eh?" she said, handing me several pieces of paper. She got really enthusiastic, it seems, she added. The papers she handed me had wrappers with softly rendered, warm illustrations. As expected, they were excellent. Kevin peered over. What is this?" he exclaimed, practically flipping over. "Well, these are beautiful. Hand-drawn, real-ish humanity's evolution is amazing," he blurted out at breakneck speed. This delicate touch, just what Jason was looking for, and there he goes, tripping over his words. Leaving a flustered Kevin behind, I looked toward the back of the shop and saw Sarah peeking out, trying to hide. I begged her. I was eager to make a formal request right away. Sarah rushed out from the back, flustered. "I'll take the job. Just please stop begging me like that," she said, playfully punching me. I was relieved that Sarah's involvement meant the project might succeed and that our connection wouldn't fade away. About a year into Sarah's contract, she quickly became a popular creator. "How did you find her? You must have used up all your luck for the rest of your life," Kevin would say enviously, almost every day, but now I even found his jealousy comforting. I was proud of having discovered Sarah's talent as a creator. While continuing her part-time job at the hamburger shop, she was actively improving her skills and even planning her own exhibition. Apparently, Sarah's ex-husband started trying to get in touch with her, despite her smoothly sailing life. Ironically, it turned out the child he had with his mistress wasn't his. Serves him right. After mistreating Sarah and driving her away, he was reportedly cut off from transactions with the Kensington Group. This was due to Sarah's father being furious over the excessively cold treatment she received. Consequently, he lost credibility in his industry, and his business rapidly deteriorated. The ex-husband, now thinking that reconciling with Sarah might mend ties with the Kensington family, had recently been stalking her. When Sarah consulted me about her ex, I switched to remote work. Additionally, I started working from a corner of the hamburger shop. As expected, her ex-husband showed up there. During a meeting, I heard arguing downstairs. "Come back, I'll give you a better life than this lousy hamburger shop." That must be the ex-husband's vile voice. "Stop it, let go." Sarah's voice reached the second floor. I expected the hamburger shop's husband to come yelling any moment, but his voice never came. Nor did the elderly ladies. After a moment of thought, I remembered. That's right, both the elderly couple were at the hospital today, leaving Sarah alone in the shop. I hurried downstairs. A shabby-looking man was grabbing Sarah's arm, trying to drag her away. I immediately intervened. "Who the hell are you? Outsiders shouldn't butt in." "Outsider, that's rude," I said, handing him my business card. "I'm Jason, Sarah's fiancé," I introduced myself. Seeing my business card, her ex-husband's face turned pale. In the past few years, I had been recognized for my achievements and had become the executive vice president of the company. Moreover, my stepfather's company had grown significantly, now even appearing in TV commercials. "I've consulted our company's legal advisor about you. If you turn around now and never show up in front of us again, we can let this stalking incident slide." After I gently explained, the ex-husband grumbled and then ran off. Sarah was initially surprised to learn that her father had influenced her ex-husband's downfall in the industry. She had thought it was her father who hadn't allowed her to return home. However, due to the recent stalking incident by her ex-husband, Sarah had an opportunity to talk with her family. There, she learned that it was her stepmother who had refused to let her return home. The stepmother had made this decision on her own and reported it to Sarah's father in a way that suited her. I apologized to Sarah for pretending to be her fiancé to get rid of her ex-husband. It actually helped. I knew you were just trying to defuse the situation, she said, smiling brightly like she used to in our student days. Seeing that smile, I decided and took Sarah's hand. I want to be your fiancé for real. I've liked you since middle school. I want to be with you, with marriage in mind. I confessed right in front of the hamburger shop. Our wedding day was blessed with clear skies. The only guests were my parents, Sarah's father. Although it was a small ceremony attended only by the elderly couple who run the hamburger shop, it was a lovely occasion filled with smiles throughout. During the ceremony, Sarah and her father had a moment to talk alone, seemingly resolving their past conflicts. Her father was unaware of the stepmother's cold treatment towards Sarah. Upon learning the truth, he immediately made a phone call. "I'm sorry for all the hardship you've endured for so long. I can't divorce her, but I will leave that house and live separately. I'm sorry for making you feel lonely." Saying this, Sarah's father apologized to her, tears welling up in his eyes. Sarah was surprised to see her father's tears for the first time. "Men cry too, you know. Praise him for realizing his mistake, Sarah," the hamburger shop owner said, concluding the ceremony. "My mother and stepfather continue to have a great relationship. I want to build a family using these two as a role model. Living happily ever after with Sarah is my ideal. To live happily together, creating our own intimate memories. What a bright and beautiful future it seems. Maybe when we're older, we can run a hamburger shop like that elderly couple. I'll have Sarah draw pictures on the wrappers. I'm sure it will be popular." I smiled, looking at my wife in her simple yet elegantly lined wedding dress. Who would have thought a small hamburger shop in a shopping street would bring such a profound connection with Sarah? Suddenly, my wife's profile overlapped with the one I used to secretly admire in middle school. When I mentioned this to her, she said, "Actually, back then, I secretly drew you." As she smiled shyly, I felt an overwhelming love for her and wished for our happiness to last forever. My name is Tom, a 28-year-old male. I work at a small factory, so my salary isn't great. I only take home about $1,500 a month, making life quite challenging. That's why I always felt sorry for my wife, Sarah. Sarah and I met through an acquaintance and started dating. Sarah was the same age as me, 26 at the time, but she seemed to have no interest in brand name items. All the women I knew were crazy about branded stuff. I may sound strange saying this, but I was fairly popular with the ladies. So, I ended up casually dating women who confessed to me, but they all clamored for branded goods. On the second date, they would start asking for things like a Gucci bag or Louboutin shoes. Such items, costing tens of thousands of dollars, were way beyond what I could afford on my salary. So, when I refused, these women quickly drifted away. In the end, I realized that to all these women, I was nothing more than an ATM. But Sarah was different. Sarah always dressed simply but not shabbily, and I thought she had great taste. Since we got married, I've grown to love her more and more. Her unpretentious personality and her constant smile have been so comforting to me. Despite the inconvenience due to my modest earnings, my wife never complains. She works as a temp and almost entirely saves the money she earns. "Sarah, why don't you buy some cosmetics you like? The toner on the bathroom counter is almost gone." But I was thinking of waiting for a sale. The easy peasy super sale starts next week. I think it'll last until then. "Really? I'm not sure if it will. There was barely any left. I'll buy it for you, so don't hesitate, Sarah. You always hold back too much on buying what you want. But I don't really dress up much. It feels wrong to buy things just for myself. You know, you haven't been buying much for yourself either. I'm honestly fine. Are you sure, Sarah? I don't want you to hold back because I always feel like I'm causing you trouble. That's not the case at all. I'm not holding back or anything. Okay, if that's what you say, Sarah, as long as you're happy. Even though she said that, I couldn't help but think that Sarah was just being considerate and not buying anything because of me. I felt guilty for causing her inconvenience because of my low salary. She might want to buy her favorite clothes and cosmetics as much as she likes. I know her friends are all fashionable. Sarah never says she's envious, but I can't help but wonder if she really feels that way. Since it had been a year since we got married, I thought of it as an anniversary gift and reserved a fancy steak restaurant. The restaurant has a great reputation, so I thought Sarah would be happy. I've never eaten at such an upscale place, so I was anxious about making a mistake with the etiquette. Well, as long as we enjoy the meal, that's what matters. As long as we don't dress inappropriately or eat messily and disturb others, I just want to enjoy the meal. Then, Sarah and I went to the fancy steak restaurant. The chef saw us and greeted us warmly. The interior of the restaurant was also impressive, and I got really nervous. I wondered if it was really okay for us to eat at such a nice place. Sarah seemed a little tense too. She wore a chic black dress and carried a gray handbag. But neither the dress or the bag were high-end brands. They were bought at a regular, affordable clothing store. Sarah seemed to really like the dress and bag and took good care of them, so they were still in great condition. Nobody would know they were inexpensive unless told, and Sarah's good sense of style made her look somewhat sophisticated. We ordered steak and appetizer. I heard it's good to start with something light, so we ordered salad and soup. The salad was fresh and very delicious. This salad is delicious. I've never had such tasty dressing before. Yes, I agree. It's got beets. Really delicious. This soup is also good. Yes, very tasty. Soup I ordered was potato pottage. Sarah's soup was corn pottage. I'm usually satisfied with canned chicken soup, but high-end soup was a whole new level of delicious. I heard that the quality of the soup is a sign of a good restaurant, and it was sweet but not overly so, and very tasty. Afterward, we had main meal, steak. It was really tender and juicy. The sauce was just right. It was my first time having steak so tender and rich in flavor. This steak is really delicious. It's so tender, it feels like it's melting in my mouth. Yes, it is. I really like it. It's the best steak I've ever had in my life. Yes, thank you for today. It was really delicious. While we were eating the steak, David, a manager from one of our client companies, showed up. I thought, the last person I went to see, and momentarily stopped using my fork. That's because David always looks down on me, and I don't like him either. David works for Company A large corporation that frequently advertises. He seems to earn a good salary, working there. Moreover, David apparently graduated from a very prestigious national university and looked down on me for only graduating high school. I attended a technical high school because I wanted to acquire a trade skill and got many qualifications while I was there. But according to David, being a graduate of a technical high school is seen as being at the bottom of the hierarchy. I worked hard in my own way and had my reasons for choosing that high school. So, I really can't like people like David who boast about their education and background and look down on others. No, I guess it's more accurate to say I quite dislike him. We had this conversation before. Today, I came to observe, B Company really is a tiny business, isn't it? It's nothing like our company. What's with this shabby equipment? You guys must be short on money, huh? Yeah, well, that's true. We are a small company, and replacing equipment isn't really feasible right now. You're Tom, right? Why are you working in a place like this? Couldn't get into a better company. I was recommended this company by my high school teacher. Plus, even though it's small, our products have one of the highest market shares in the country, so I felt it was a good choice. High school. So you joined this company right after high school? No way. Wait a minute. High school graduate and already working. That's like being a loser in life. Why do you think that? I don't believe that's true. Because you didn't study hard enough to get into university, right? Stuck as a high school graduate. So, which high school did you go to? It must be a bottom tier one. Well, I went to C Technical High School. That's C Technical High School. The one where you get in just by writing your name. You really went to such a low-tier high school. And not going to university. Your life is basically over. A high school that even a kindergartner could get into. It's embarrassing to even be alive. There's no need to say that. I worked hard too. Worked hard. That's something a college graduate can say. Not you, a high school graduate from a technical school. You didn't work hard. That's why you're just a high school graduate. You don't get it. David said this and walked away. It felt like he just came to be a nuisance. He was really annoying. After such an incident, I really hated David. I mean, who could possibly like such a person? While we were eating steak, David was smirking. Then he sat next to us and suddenly started saying mean things. Wow, Tom, you frequent places like this as well. I thought you wouldn't have the chance. How many months of your salary did you spend here? Maybe 2 or 3 months worth. No, I just came here for our wedding anniversary. I haven't spent that many months worth of salary. I'd be surprised to see someone spend 2 or 3 months' salary at a steak restaurant. No matter how expensive, I doubt it would cost that much. Since he dislikes me, he can say such mean things and laugh about it. I looked down on him for being so rotten to the core. Yeah, well, it seems a bit out of your league, doesn't it? Also, your wife looks pretty poor. What's with that cheap outfit? Suddenly, he started belittling Sarah's clothes, and I got really angry. It's one thing to be sarcastic to me, but it's unforgivable to talk about her who has nothing to do with this. Sarah looked sad and then looked down. I caught a glimpse of her face turning red, as if she was embarrassed. That flimsy dress and obviously fake leather bag, so poverty-stricken. You can afford to buy anything better than that, Tom. You really are a loser. Hey, why would you say that? Don't talk about my wife. Even if you're a client's manager, I won't tolerate that. It's okay, let it be. Stop, please. Sarah, I don't like you being insulted. Let's just go home. We've had enough delicious food. I'm fine with this. Yeah, poor people should go home. After all, your wife has been eating only bread which comes with steak. Seems she liked it more than the steak. Poor people, just eat bread at home. We were stunned. Sarah started to cry, saddened by the whole situation. I thought about dragging David outside and yelling at him. But then a lady at a distant table said something. Well, you wouldn't understand a good thing about bread. What's that? You, sir, don't seem to understand the quality of this bread. Humph, I don't see anything good about this plain bread. It's just bread. Sir, you might want to stop there. Saying such things is not very appropriate. What are you talking about, chef? This is just regular bread, nothing special. Only poor people would appreciate this cheap stuff. I can't eat something so lowly. My taste is too refined. Well, you think that way, fine. This bread is actually a super high-end product, you know, right, Jennifer? Really? The wheat, we grow it on our farm. Have you heard of Westfield Farm? Westfield Farm, the famous one that produces high-end vegetables and fruits. Yes, I'm the owner. My husband and I run it. We grow a variety of vegetables and rice, and the wheat for this bread is also from our farm. It's top-grade bread from the Westfield brand. I see. You said your taste is refined, but you didn't recognize the quality of this bread. We aimed for a sophisticated taste. Yes, this is exclusive, high-end bread only supplied to top restaurants. David had been belittling the bread, but it turns out that the lady there was the one who produced it. Her name is Jennifer. Jennifer, along with her husband, manages Westfield Farm, a well-known establishment renowned for its vastness and its homemade condiments. Their condiments are quite pricey, popular among a certain circle of elite ladies. For someone like me, the prices were far beyond reach. And this bread was also a luxury item. Jennifer's bread, made with an original recipe, was unique and not available from other producers. It had a refined sweetness without being too sour, making it delicious. No wonder Sarah liked it so much. Although Sarah wasn't greedily eating only the bread, David had been mocking her. David, who may have never tasted this bread, was quick to assert that only poor people would be grateful for such a thing. But he must have been startled to find Jennifer, the creator, right there. David was sweating and seemed at a loss for words, clearly flustered. From my perspective, he looked quite embarrassed. I couldn't help but view him disdainfully as he awkwardly tried to find an excuse. Haha, is that so? My apologies. Well, I haven't eaten much bread before. Sorry about that. You don't owe me an apology. Perhaps you should apologize to these two. Me? Apologize to him? Yes, you have been saying some terrible things. It was quite unbearable to listen to. You should properly apologize. But I'm a manager at his client's company, and he's just a low-level employee. I don't want to apologize to someone who's just a high school graduate. I hate the bottom-tier people. Oh, you hate the bottom tier. So you hate someone like me who started from high school too. You look down on me. Well, that's not what I mean. No, it's different. I was just saying that about Tom. It didn't sound like that, did it, Jennifer? No, it didn't. You appeared to be looking down on all high school graduates. Just to let you know, my husband and I, who run Westfield Farm, are also high school graduates. No, that's not what Enough with the excuses. Can you please leave? You're ruining the enjoyment of our delicious foods, right, chef? Yes, that's right. We put our hearts into making foods for our customers to enjoy, but with someone like you here, it ruins the atmosphere. Please leave. Your presence is no longer welcome here. All right, I understand. I'm sorry. David apologized to the chef, Jennifer, and us before leaving. Although it was an unpleasant encounter with a mean person, having supporters like them made me feel relieved. People like David, behaving arrogantly, would surely be unwelcome in any high-class establishment. I figured he must have been condescending to the staff as well. Sarah was very grateful to the chef and Jennifer. Thank you so much for defending us. I was nervous coming to such a nice place for the first time, and these clothes and bag are just affordable items I bought with the money I earned from my part-time job. I was worried they might be inappropriate. Don't worry about that. You're well presented, and you haven't done anything wrong. Just be confident and proud of who you are. Exactly. What does it matter if something is inexpensive? It suits you well and looks clean. People aren't better just because they own expensive things. My husband and I earn decently as a couple, but I've never desired expensive brand items. It's enough that something fits well and looks good. Yeah, I guess feeling ashamed or sorry for myself is the real embarrassment. I'll try to be more confident. That's right. Confidence is important. You did nothing wrong, so be proud and come visit us again. We were happy to see you enjoying our bread. Thank you. It seemed that my wife was self-conscious about her attire looking inexpensive. The clothes and bag she wore were bought with her own earnings, but as a temp worker, her salary is modest. Seeing her friends, who who are quite well off and own branded bags and shoes. She must have felt a bit envious. On the contrary, I felt even more guilty. If only my earnings were better, she could have had the option to be a stay-at-home wife and bought her plenty of beautiful clothes and bags. Due to our financial struggles and my low income, she has to work. But Sarah never complained about working. She's kind, considerate, and truly more than I deserve. We then paid our bill and left the restaurant, grateful for the unexpected support and feeling a bit better about ourselves. When that man was being mean, I wasn't sure how to react, but it's reassuring to know we have allies. I felt very reassured. David always acts like that when he comes to our place, but I didn't want to see him either. Well, he got told off by the chef and Jennifer and scurried away. I'm really glad we could enjoy such delicious steak today. Thank you. It must have been expensive, right? Don't worry about it. I wanted to take you there. If it was delicious, then that's all that matters. Let's go again sometime. Let's do that. After that, I worked tirelessly at my job and gradually began to be recognized by my peers. I had always been at the bottom, but my boss finally acknowledged my hard work. I was thrilled that my efforts were being fairly evaluated. Sarah was overjoyed when she heard about my promotion. Congratulations on your promotion. I'm so glad your hard work paid off. I'm glad there are people who recognize my efforts. If you work sincerely, it eventually pays off. That's true. I want to learn from you. I want to be your support. Sarah, you already are a great support to me. Thanks for everything. My pleasure. Oh, by the way, I've made a reservation for this Saturday. I wanted to celebrate your promotion. For my promotion, where? That steak restaurant. I wanted to go there again with you. Really? That's great. Then let's go this Saturday. Thank you so much. Sarah had reserved the same high-end steak restaurant for my promotion celebration. I was so moved I almost cried. How lucky I was to have such a thoughtful wife. Then came Saturday, and we decided to dress up a bit and go to the restaurant. Although we're not high earners, we chose affordable clothes that still look nice. When we entered, the chef and Jennifer were there. I thought Jennifer was there to dine again. Today, I heard it's a celebration, so please accept this as a gift from us. This is wine. Yes, we got high-quality wine. It's exquisite, so please try it. This is too generous. Such an expensive item as a service. We couldn't possibly accept. It's our pleasure. Consider it a small token of our appreciation. Lucky us. Let's gratefully accept his kind offer. All right, let's enjoy it. Delicious. It tastes sweet. I wanted you to try this exceptional quality. Enjoy it. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to have such delicious wine. Tom, make sure you thank your wife. She's the one you should be grateful to. Sarah, thank you so much. Today, we're celebrating thanks to you. Let's enjoy our meal. Such a lovely couple. To support each other like this is wonderful. Here, take this from our farm as well. Jennifer handed us a set of high-end condiments. The dressings alone were worth around $15 each. I usually opt for dressings that cost about $1.80, so I wondered what these high-end dressings would taste like. There was also a large package of premium fruits. Westfield Farm strawberries, packaged in wooden boxes, sold for about $200. These were high-end fruits that someone like me would never normally afford. These are the legendary Westfield strawberries. Can we really accept such wonderful gifts? Yes, please do. Think of it as a thank you for appreciating our bread. The strawberries look so beautiful and big. I've never seen anything like it. Westfield Farm is truly remarkable, with its extensive lands. I faced many challenges when I first got married. My husband and I worked tirelessly in the fields every day, but we supported each other and eventually built a large farm. So, you two should continue to support each other as well, no matter what. Stand by each other and move forward together. Yes, we will. Thank you so much. Jennifer seemed like a refined and graceful lady now, but she must have gone through a lot of struggles. She wasn't flaunting luxury brands but was well made up, and her clothes were well cared for. Her shoes were polished too, showing she had a comfortable lifestyle. I aspired to be like her. No matter how tough things get, I want to be someone who supports my spouse and works hard for our dreams. With that in mind, I thought of collaborating with Sarah, enjoying our endeavors together. The steak that day was incredibly delicious. It was delicious the last time too, but maybe it tasted even better wrapped in the happy atmosphere. Watching Sarah happily eating steak also warmed my heart. A year passed. As a section chief now, I was working hard and came home with a bouquet of flowers for our wedding anniversary. It was Sarah's favorite pink bouquet. I suggested going to the steak restaurant again, but Sarah seemed hesitant. I wondered if she didn't want to go there anymore. What's wrong? Didn't you like that place? We don't have to go if you don't want to. Well, I do want to go, but we can't. I went to the doctor today and found out I'm pregnant. You know, pregnant women shouldn't have wine. What? You're pregnant? That's incredible. Well, Sarah, it's our baby. Yes, our long-awaited baby. I'm so happy. I'll be a good mother. I'll do my utmost to be a great father. Let's keep working hard together. Yes, we'll help each other out no matter what. Then Sarah decided to quit her job. And she gave birth to a boy. He was adorable with big eyes like Sarah's. Holding him, I felt like crying, overwhelmed by his preciousness. I was grateful every day for Sarah, who took care of our son. I did what I could, but as a stay-at-home mom, she did so much for us. As our son grew, Sarah began studying again. Sarah obtained her pharmacy technician certification and began working at a pharmacy. The nearby pharmacy offers flexible shifts, allowing her to finish work in time to pick up our son from his extracurricular activities. By that time, my earnings had increased significantly, and it would have been fine for Sarah to remain a full-time homemaker. But she had always been interested in pharmacy work and planned to study after childbirth. I was proud of my hard-working and ambitious wife. More than 20 years have passed since our son was born. I'm an old man now. Our son, Jason, graduated from university this spring and got a job. He's working for a major bank far from home and coming back for a holiday break. I believe our son, Jason, is very talented as he secured a position at a major megabank. I'm proud of him. Today, Sarah and I are being treated to steak by our son with his first salary. It's at that high-end steak restaurant. The chef, now in his mid-70s, was in his mid-50s when I first spoke to him. Hey there, is this your son? Yes, this is my son, Jason. Nice to meet you. I heard from my dad and mom that they really love this steak place. I thought I'd treat them. What a great son you have. You must be proud of him. Haha, he's excellent, unlike me. Oh come on, Tom, you're great too. Aren't you a big shot now? Well, I'm just the vice president of a small company. That's still impressive. Now, please enjoy your meal. We started with the appetizing salad and ordered soup, too. Every single piece was so delicious, it felt like our cheeks might fall off. Jason, who was eating steak from this place for the first time, was also moved. Dad, this steak is really amazing. Wow, I've never had steak this tender before. I could eat loads of it. It's so good. It makes me glad to be alive. Yeah, I love this steak too. I could eat it endlessly. Thanks for making the reservation today. Being treated by you is like a dream come true. You've really grown up. Well, I'm old enough, right? I've finally become a working adult, so I need to thank Mom and Dad. or it wouldn't feel right. You become so dependable. And this bread is absolutely delicious too. Where do they make it? Oh, that's from the Westfield Farm bread. You know, from that large farm. Oh, the large farm along the highway. I didn't know they grew wheat there. That's new to me. By the way, is Jennifer doing well? What is she up to these days? Actually, she passed away recently from cancer. I was quite shocked when I found out. What? She passed away? That's so sad. Jennifer was battling cancer. I had no idea. What? Dad and Mom, you guys knew her? Well, sort of. She was a lady who was very kind to us. We didn't even get to say goodbye. It was a private funeral, and I only went to her grave. Jennifer was working hard at the farm till the end, thinking about it every day. She really loved the farm. We'll never forget the vegetables and fruits filled with Jennifer's love. She was truly dedicated to running the farm. Now her son has taken over and is running the farm with his father. This bread is made using a secret recipe passed down, so it's exactly like Jennifer's taste. Jennifer's bread. Don't cry too much. Let's eat with a smile to help Jennifer's spirit rest in peace. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Jennifer, for everything. Our son has grown up well, and we can eat steak together as a family. We hadn't known about Jennifer's passing. We had been so busy, hardly visiting the steak restaurant, so we never bumped into her. Jennifer had been battling terminal breast cancer, but even after hospitalization and discharge, she kept working hard at the farm. It made me realize how deeply she cherished the crops she grew. I deeply respected her dedication and love for the crops she grew, putting her life into her work. After praying for Jennifer's soul, we enjoyed the steak. My son paid the bill smoothly when it was time, and seeing him grown up like this reassured me. It's impressive to see him handling such a large amount so effortlessly. When I was a new graduate starting at a company, I was so poor, even hesitating to buy meals at convenience stores, a stark contrast. Since then, we've been going to the steak restaurant for every special occasion. The chef had grown old, so his son took over. Originally, his son was a company employee, but he trained to become a steak chef. I want to keep working hard so I can continue to enjoy delicious steak. To show appreciation for all the hard times my wife has been through, I plan to take her there again for her next birthday.